thumbs up or some other visual that.
Can you hear us? Zena, can you hear us? Yes. Now you can.
Great. Perfect.
How many times have we done this before? Why don't we know how to do it? I don't know. Sorry. Hopefully we're better at other things than running these.
All right, so I'm going to talk about a couple topics. So I will come back to the community goals in a second. The first thing I wanted to talk about is one of the things that we're hoping to do to drive earlier collaboration in the development process. And so for those of you who have been a part of the contribution process, we have a way in GitHub for you to open up pull requests to the platform and get feedback from a product and architecture en route to sort of getting that contribution either merged or finding an alternate path for getting that into the platform. In the last year or so, we've also introduced some other ways through Django plugins and other things for people modifying the platform to still be able to get what they need done without necessarily having to come and get a core contribution merged to the platform. So sort of an easier way to extend things. But one of the things we're just about to start piloting and trying out is basically a replacement for what we used to do around when you wanted to get feedback when there was no code yet, when you wanted to say, hey, we think we'd like to improve this part of the platform. Our previous advice was open up a pull request that's empty or that's nearly empty, and then put all the things you'd like to do, and through that process, we'll get you feedback. And so what we've introduced is this service desk. So if you have an account on the edX, Atlassian, Jira site, which is openedx.atlassian.net, you can view this portal, and we'll send out the link and make this visible at some point. But again, this is still just a pilot. We have provided a way to sort of create these proposals, provide a description for what part of the system you want to actually modify, what your core sort of requirements and goals are for these pages and views. And then Ned will speak to this as well, but through the new Discourse tool that we have, we want to sort of continue that conversation in the community and make sure that folks in the community have the opportunity to sort of improve these proposals. So when applicable, if there's any link to an existing or new Discourse thread as it relates to these proposals, you can provide that link here. And then what these do is these create a ticket on the queue that on the teaching and learning team and OpenEdX team we look at to try and give earlier feedback on sort of high-level product direction and architectural guidance or suggestions. It's just also another way for us to know, like, what are the ways that people are trying to extend the platform. Even if we can't fully support all those immediately, it's helpful to sort of get kind of a pulse through something like this. So that was the first topic I was going to mention, is this platform development proposals. But I'll stop here and see if anyone has any questions, comments, suggestions about this first topic.
Marco, when we open one of these tickets, will we be able to see it?
Yes, good question. So everyone that is a Confluence user will have the ability to see the tickets and sort of browse the tickets in this project. So in addition to that, in the top right of, I don't know if this is blocking it, maybe it's not. On the top right of this screen, you see this sort of list that says requests. And you can look at, like, I'm, for testing purposes, a part of these two groups. I'm a part of product and I'm a part of ed services. So you can go to this view and I can see, for example, this list, which shows me all of the tickets that I have created. In this case, it's across all of our support centers, but you'll see the PDP project tickets like these. And it also lets you sort of see things that are created specifically to your organization. If you're associated with a service partner or sort of organization in the community, you can look at all the tickets from that group in an easier view. But there's also a way that you'll be able to see all the tickets as well. We have sort of visibility for all of them as well directly. Any other questions or thoughts on what we've looked at today?
There used to be at least one other Confluence or Jira project for collecting, I think they were called CRIs.
Yes, community reported incidents, yeah.
Is there going to be any effort to migrate those forward, or if we're, you know, harboring a couple of those, should we take it upon ourselves?
It's a good question, actually. So there's a ticket that is assigned to me right now in our sort of list of tasks to figure out and answer that question. So I think the next time we talk as a community, we hopefully will have an update to that as well. But we'd like to, I think, make that similar so you're not looking in lots of different places for this kind of feedback.
We do want to make it easy for someone to report an issue separately from proposing a change, and whether that's better done by having 2 separate places to report them, or whether we have to just make one place and then we would triage which kind of thing it is, we'll still have to figure out.
If it informs your decision making, I would just suggest that sometimes it's hard for people on the outside to know what the difference is between an incident and a proposal.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. We've even found that internally at times things that get reported as a bug feel like a bug, but in actuality or sort of a limitation. So anyway, so that flexibility we know about internally. So we'll we wanted to get this out the door ASAP, so that's why we didn't have that full answer yet. But yeah, it's a totally
okay.
Any other questions or comments on this? If not, we can move to the next topic. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is something that the visual is still at the level of fidelity of Post-it notes. So we're not yet at a point where, as I'd hoped on Monday, to be able to get the first version of a digital representation of this. But one of the things that we've identified as an area of need for us as a community is to have a shared definition of what the platform is today. So there are sort of on open edX.org, there are some visuals and digital like representations of what the platform are that attempt to communicate things like the Open edX platform is, you know, a learner experience, a set of educator experiences, a set of operator experiences, data and infrastructure. And so there's some sort of attempts already that we've made to help define what the platform is. And one thing that I showed very briefly earlier, I'll just go back to that as a reference so you can see it, is there's this notion here of a platform area that we're piloting in the platform development proposals process. And this is how we internally at edX.org have started classifying the different like bugs that we get reported to the system. And this is a way, these categories are organized with the set of questions that help people who are partner facing or customer facing in some way to say like, oh, this is a thing that impacts commerce and payment. So this is where that bug ticket should go. And once I specify that, you know, this is the area of the system that it impacts. And so we don't yet have a version of that that is like not specific to our edX.org or bug reporting needs. So that is the second topic I wanted to cover around what we're calling a visual platform map. And the idea would be to be able to say, these are the 3 to 5 main high-level areas of the Open edX platform. As an example, the current 5 that we're thinking and working through are the following ones. This is just going to be a bunch of text, but that's okay. So there's a set of learner experiences I mentioned earlier, educator experiences, operator experiences, maybe people that are managing the site, configuring these sites, but also people who are doing course operation and lifecycle management that may not be the instructors directly at times. Data and analytics, a whole host of things related to that. And then finally, but critically, site delivery and infrastructure, a lot of the behind the scenes things. So our goal is to be able to get to a point where we can say, for each of these areas, for example, for the Open edX platform, what are the 3 to 5 areas that make up that level of the next level down? in 1 to 3 sentences, how do we describe this platform level to people who aren't in the edX.org bubble all the time? How do we describe this simply? And then what are the principles at play that we care about at this level of the platform, right? Extensibility, flexibility, open source. Like, what are the words at whatever level of the platform that are valuable? And then how do we link to other important reference materials or discourse conversations or other things that are going on about this? Certainly, like, at the highest level, this is maybe not the most novel thing to do, but when you start to look at, like, okay, let's describe learner experiences and do it for just this part of the platform. What are the main areas of the learner experience that we think are worth highlighting? And similarly for all these areas, but also within learner experiences, this is intentionally left blank here. But if we were, for example, to just look at the course experience or the program experience or the discussion forums, how do we then describe this level of the platform? And so what we hope is that this map lets us get to the point where we can better communicate with people outside the building around, these are the areas that we're working on, or for this part of the platform, here's a document that best represents where the platform is going, right? We have done this in many different ways in the past. For example, at the last OpenEdX conference, we presented and shared it at one point, this is our thinking on where credentials are going. Well, if you didn't happen to be a part of that moment in time, there's no way for you to go back and see and review that sort of platform direction. So those are the things we want to sort of make progress on in the coming months. And so that's the preview I wanted to give about the platform map, and wanted to sort of, I'll leave it at that and see if there's any other thoughts or suggestions or comments on the last update for that I gave.
Come on, you're all usually a pretty opinionated bunch. Where are the questions? All right.
I mean, I don't have too much in terms of opinions of it, because it feels like the sort of thing that you should just be able to go ahead and write down at this point. Yeah, it seems fine.
Great. Yeah, we're hoping to have like a first pass of the actual visual itself, but this template that I'm showing is just like one of the example other sort of things that we'll have as part of this, but we eventually hope to represent it as a single visual representation, not just this. But yeah, definitely more to come in next month's update or future updates.
And you'll notice that both of these things that Marco has talked about so far are efforts to improve the contribution flow and make it easier to talk with each other about possible changes to the platform, right? The first was a logistical, how do you actually make a proposal? And this one is sort of, let's get us all on the same page in terms of vocabulary and structure of the system so that we can be more efficient in describing how we want it to change.
Great. So the last thing to mention here is sort of just always trying to go back and relate the things we're doing back to the goals that we set out at the last conference. So as Ned said, a lot of the things we're doing, a lot of the things we talked about today are in the first column around driving product development collaboration. I did want to at least give a minor update or sort of mention some of the other things that are going on that, you know, some of you are actually already actively engaged in the other two sort of areas. So the first thing is that a number of the core technologies in the platform, we're sort of in the midst of trying to get the upgrades completed before their end of life, basically. So Ned can step in when I'm wrong here, but I think both Node, Django, and Python are all critical upgrades that we are in the middle of. And so that's what we sort of think about in this sort of middle column around collectively improving platform health. I don't know if there is currently any Incur projects or tickets for some or all of the three of these, but
yeah, I haven't looked at the open Incur tickets, the incremental improvement tickets recently. Right now, we've got a team here that is focused on getting the edX platform repos and the other repos onto Python 3. And they're at the point where the tests all run, they don't all pass, but they are organized around working down the backlog of which tests are failing and getting them to pass. So the Python 3 upgrade is on a good trajectory right now. We don't have to get into Django 2.2 actually until next March or so. So we're going to do Python 3 first, and then Django 2.
And then finally, like one of the other things that we're sort of generally focused on is how do we sort of make sure that parts of the platform that are the easiest points of extension enable for a lot more teaching and learning contributions to sort of make sure that that is a core part of the Open edX platform, that people are pushing the bounds of what is possible, experimenting and researching and exploring new methods with regards to teaching and learning. So it's sometimes easy for us to sort of go back to thinking about what makes our platforms and sites and other things easier or faster to run, more efficient to run. But we're sort of renewing that focus on that third column. So it's sort of an embedded thing. There's nothing specific here. But we internally have talked about doing a better job of at least communicating for different parts of the TNL platform areas where we would like to go. And we think that will help with contribution. So I already alluded to that a little bit previously, but nothing else more specific on that one. So those are the updates that I think I had, and then Ned had some other.
I think we lost Marco.
What?
Oh,
No?
it looks to me like I'm still there, but maybe my audio or something is lagging.
Marco's there.
I can still hear him.
Okay.
Okay. It might be that we lost Colin now
Might
for a
be.
bit. So yeah, so that's it for my update and sort of the recap or covering of those 2019 goals. I'll turn it back over to Ned.
Any questions for Marco before I do a few smaller things?
I hadn't heard about the node upgrade before. Is there a project to follow there or something to catch up on?
They haven't started on it yet, but well, let's see. Since we're talking about it, how do I share a thing?
The middle.
Just this.
Yep.
Yeah, I really should learn how to use this. Google Chrome. Let me show you the thing that we look at when we start thinking about the upgrades.
Oh yeah.
This is the spreadsheet that shows calendar years across the top, starting with 2016, the March of the the March of the Open edX releases down here, with the actual dates for the ones in the past and the planned dates for the ones in the future. And then you can see the bars show when various versions of Django are in support, when various versions of Python are in support, versions of Ubuntu and versions of Node. And you can see that it's a little bit tight, but in the Juniper timeframe, we are going to be dealing with the end of Python 2.7 and the end of Node 8.x. So we'll be moving on to Python 3.5 and Node 10, I believe, is the plan. We don't quite have to get off of 1.11 of Django yet, and Ubuntu is lasting us a good long while, but we're probably going to switch to Ubuntu 18 pretty soon anyway.
Is this shared or shareable anywhere?
Yeah, actually, this is linked. This is linked from OEP 10. I'll put this. I believe you can all look at this. I'll put this in the chat. What else is there to submit? Oh, and Fanil was going to add Mongo bars down here at the bottom too, because we have to worry about when versions of Mongo go in and out of support. But that hasn't happened yet.
And then the only other sort of note, this was in the chat, but Nate called out or asked a question about whether that platform map and those descriptions will make their way onto open.edx.org. That's certainly our eventual goal, right, is getting that map, getting it out there, and making it be a part of how we describe the platform.
Right. Yeah, so openedx.org has some pictures, at least, that sort of have a visual map of the platform. That's much more sort of marketing flashy, try to convince people to give it a try. Marco's efforts here are trying to be much more detailed and disciplined and a framework in which we can actually talk about changes. Any other questions? I didn't think we were going to look at the support Windows spreadsheet, but it's very pretty. Makes some good eye candy, at least.
And scary at the same time.
And scary at the same time. And you can see that we're planning to call it Koa, Lilac, and Maple after that, if you're interested in that kind of trivia. Any questions about where we got to? Okay. I didn't make a slide about Discourse. Not that Discourse. I closed that too. Okay. Discuss.openedx.org. So we have launched a new discussion forum based on Discourse, which is open source software that was created by one of the co-founders of Stack Overflow. It's called discuss.openedx.org. It's been going for a couple of months now. You should all be using it. We are going to shut down the mailing lists. So edxcode at googlegroups.com, openedxops at googlegroups.com, those will both be closed in favor of using Discourse instead. Discourse is much better for organizing conversations, for keeping track of conversations. If you liked the mailing list approach, you can get Discourse to just mail everything to you anyway. So there's really no loss of functionality. What we've been working on is building up the categories. So we have community, we have educators, we have DevOps, we have development, and we have announcements. So for instance, the things that used to go out to edX code, or we would say, here comes a release, or here's a security fix, or here's some code we're getting rid of, those will all become announcements in the announcements category. What do I want to say about this? What I've tried to do, we've got an introductions category for people to introduce themselves. There's not much in there, and in fact, when I was thinking about talking about this today, I realized I hadn't introduced myself, so I did an introduction of myself this morning. I encourage you all to get into Discourse, see what discussions are happening. I'm very interested in ideas you have about how to make it better. One of the side effects of it being a place where people can come and ask for help is that the bulk of the traffic so far is people who are in over their heads trying to run OpenEdX, trying to get help. And I'm hoping that the categorization system and the tools that are available to users in Discourse can make it so that you can participate in Discourse either as part of those discussions or as not as part of those discussions as you wish, so that instead of having to just see the whole fire hose of a mailing list, you can tailor what parts of the discussion you want to be part of. One of the things that's in here is under development is collaborative proposals, which is another place that we're hoping to get discussions going about things that you would like to build, and finding, and there you could find people that could help you build it. One of the benefits of being open source is that we have hundreds of developers outside of edX who are skilled and energetic, and I would love to find ways to help them find each other and build amazing things to make OpenEdX the best teaching and learning platform there is. So this collaborative proposals section is a start at that. If you're familiar with the site that OpenCraft had been running called edXchange, the plan is that those discussions will go into this category. Any questions about Discourse?
What's the push going to look like in terms of getting the getting partner organizations to send their course designers to this? I feel like the issues we've had with a lot of previous things is that people were informed about it, and it was sort of a, hey, it's out there and use it if you feel like it sort of thing, and that's sort of why they become minimal traffic and people just looking for help with bizarre problems.
Yep.
Is there going to be like a 6-month-long, hey, please use this to every partner?
I am definitely interested in working with Ed Services to make sure partners understand that this exists. Partners have a forum of their own. I'm not sure what the balance is going to be between the two of them.
It's basically empty, so it'll be 100% here. if there's anything.
Oh, really? Okay. To tell you the truth, I don't think I've ever been on the inside of the Partners Forum.
You're not the only one.
Okay. So your question really is, how do you get partners to talk to each other at all? Not how do you get them to do it in Discourse?
Well, there wasn't a push for the partner portal either.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's good background then. But yeah, so one of the things we didn't cover here that is that as of the beginning of our fiscal year, which started in July, we've slightly reorganized how the Open edX team fits into the rest of the organization, and we have some representation from Ed Services on the squad that encompasses the Open edX team. So we've got a little bit closer working relationship with some Ed Services people. So I'm hoping that will help break down some of the barriers between what edX thinks of as the edX institutions and what edX thinks of as the Open edX community.
So one question that Nate called out in the chat that I figured you could answer, attempt to answer as well, is how do we see the overlap between Discourse and Slack?
Right. Yeah, so this is a big issue, and honestly, Slack suffers from the same problem as the mailing list, is that once someone has decided they're going to put words onto it, there's nothing we can do to move those words to a better place. Right? I don't know how to get people to stop asking installation questions in the general channel. One of the good things about Discourse is that if someone comes into collaborative proposals and says, how do I read my LMS logs? At least I can move that topic into a different place so that the thing can stay organized. Slack is really based on synchronous discussion, and Discourse is better for asynchronous discussion. You don't have to be in the same time zone as the people you're talking with in Discourse, whereas in Slack, 12-hour lags don't really make much sense, and the discussion tends to float away downstream. So what I'm hoping is that Discourse proves useful enough that Slack gets used more for the kinds of face-to-face replacements, synchronous kinds of discussions where it makes sense. One of the other things I'm realizing about Slack, when we first started using it, it was frustrating that there was no way to just open a Slack workspace to the public, so you have to use that janky Heroku invitation app. But it turns out that when you just open Slack to the public, it's very difficult for things to stay organized because you've got no shared culture with which to decide how to use Slack. And we're seeing the effects of that in the general channel, right? Because we get installation questions there. So Discourse, I'm hoping, will give us more tools with which we can keep things organized and therefore productive. All right, the next question. I'm catching up on, Marco's answering all the questions textually, and I'm catching up. I don't know about what the attribution what will happen to attribution when content is moved. We're not going to be doing an actual migration of all the Discourse topics from edXchange to discuss.openedx.org because for technical reasons, we don't really have the access to make that feasible. So the plan now is that I believe, I'm leaving this up to Xavier at OpenCraft who runs edXchange, but I believe his thinking is there are few enough active threads right now in edXchange that they can be terminated there with a pointer over to Discuss, and then people can sort of restart the discussion over there as appropriate. If that means cutting and pasting topics, then so be it. But we're not going to try to get all of the content from there over in sort of an automatic process.
One of the, so two questions to call out. So I'll answer the first one. So the question here is around active investigations about using a different Open edX discussion forum tool and even potentially Discourse for the platform. So that's certainly, I think that was a thread that was started in 2017, if I'm correct about that. And so there's been some activity there. I think we have no active plans right now for that one, but that's an example of one that we anticipate moving over to the new site so that conversation can continue about it. So that's not a complete answer, I would say. It's sort of a TBD for that one. In terms of the benefit to integrating Slack and Discourse somehow, so another question from Nate. I don't know. I mean, Ned may think differently here, but my sense is that we want to understand how Discourse can be valuable, citing those sort of the ability to thread conversations, to move conversations, to combine and merge and moderate conversation. So it's possible that others have in the community tried to sort of connect Discourse and Slack somehow. So if you do have pointers to anything or suggestions there, we definitely welcome them, but not clear right now.
Yeah, I am definitely interested in talking to anyone who has ideas about how to make this work better. From my own experience, bridging to communication media tends to get sort of a little noisy. If it's the kind of thing where I no longer have to look at Slack because everything is also in Discourse, that's fine. But if it's the kind of thing where, well, we're getting notifications in one place about stuff that's happening in another place, and then you go to the other place to be part of that, that tends to get just a little noisy. I'm thinking in terms of our own internal Slack, where we sometimes have Jira integrations, and I'm trying to have a discussion with someone, and suddenly all the Jira ticket state transitions are popping up into the same stream, and it just feels chaotic. So again, I'm definitely interested in hearing about what could be done better in the community category in Discourse is questions about how we should use this, as well as questions about the future of remote hangouts and opinions. For instance, the only reason we're using this fancy microphone on the table today is because Regis said it'd be better if you had a good microphone. And I realized, oh yeah, we had one of those around here. I spent a couple of hours trying to find the microphone. So I want to hear your opinions. I'm trying to be responsive to your opinions. Everyone come and tell me what to do. I'm working hard on Discourse because I'm hoping that it's a better place for collaboration than the mailing lists and Slack put together. And if that means that Slack kind of falls off, that's fine. If it's not serving its purpose, we don't need to keep it either. So again, I want your ideas. Okay, I'm trying to think now if there was more that I needed to say about Discourse. Oh, one more thing. When I look at the people participating in this list, I'm pleased that I know almost all of you by name. Not all of you. I'd love to meet you in person sometime, perhaps at the Open edX conference in Portugal at the end of May. What I'm hoping is that each of you, being longtime members of the community and fine upstanding members of the community, can participate in Discourse, not just when you have a question to ask or an answer to provide, but just liking good questions, liking answers, welcoming people, doing those sorts of things. Discourse has learned from the lessons of Stack Overflow that gamification is a thing that can encourage good behavior. And so there are badges for things like liking lots of things or having topics get liked a lot. And the more people can be in there and active and exhibiting our best behavior, the better Discourse is going to be. So I'm hoping that you'll all take a spin around Discourse and try to make it a little bit of your daily routine to see what's going on and keep the energy flowing there. Uh-oh. Zena says that U of W will not pay for Open edX staff to go to a conference outside of the US. I had not heard that before. That is disappointing. I'm sorry to hear that. I wish I could do something with that. I'm sorry. You can watch it on YouTube, I guess.
Right.
Okay, next topic. So we touched on the release windows. Juniper, which is the next Open edX release that's going to be happening. The plan is to start the Juniper release formally once edX platform and the other repos are on, well, edX platform at least is on Python 3. Our guess is that that will happen around the middle of October at this point, which is a little bit later than we had wanted to start the Juniper process. But it doesn't really make sense to ship Juniper with edX platform still running on Python 2, given that Python 2 reaches end of life on the 1st of January, 2020. So that's our plan as of now. In order to maybe shorten the release cycle that starts in the middle of October, I think I'm going to try some installation testing early just to iron out some of the other problems that might crop up. And hopefully the sort of the last thing that we have to figure out is it all working on Python 3, and then we'll be good to go. So I may be reaching out to get some help from some of you with that kind of testing. And I'm also interested to hear how people think they might be able to help with automating the packaging of Open edX releases, automating the testing of the tagged releases, those sorts of things. We're always thinking about how to do things better, but both because for lack of time and my lack of DevOps skills and maybe my own conservative nature, we tend to do things the same in the next release as we did in the last release, unless we get some strong input from people that we should make a change. And if there's a suggestion for the change, that's even better. Any questions about Juniper? No. The last topic is the conference. So planning has formally begun for the conference. One of the things we've actually asked you for input on in Discourse again is ideas for keynotes. So we are casting a wide net just to get interesting brainstormy ideas for who might be a good person to do a keynote at the Open edX 2020 conference. Nate has given us a few suggestions. There were a few more from some other people, but we're always looking for some more. So if you've got ideas, they don't have to be Open edX people, they just have to be education people somewhere, or inspirational technologists, or whatever. The wilder the better in some ways, so that we can find the most interesting people for the conference. That might be all I've got. Should have made some slides. Any final questions? Oh, and again, I'm going to say this once more. I'm looking for feedback about the Hangouts in general, so that we can make these better. I think there should be more people attending than there are. I want to figure out how to make that happen. If you've got interesting things to present, I'm very interested to hear about that. Zena gave me a suggestion before we started the recording of something that she's excited about, that she thinks other people would like to see, and she's probably right, so I'm going to follow up on that. But if you've got things you want to show or things you want to see, let me know. Any final thoughts or questions? All right. We don't have to fill the hour. We can call it here. The next one of these will be in roughly a month. We'll pick a time. One of the bits of feedback that we got was don't make it exactly the same time every time, so that people can maybe attend if they have, you know, a trumpet lesson or something at that time usually. So we'll try to do that too.
Great.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you around.
Thanks.
Ooh.